Yo, 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 what's going on? It's Terrell, Hall of Fame, D-Line, tbkc, and all that sweet, beautiful, wonderful I tell you what, you know what I mean? It's amazing. This question comes up a lot, and I'm going to make it as simple as possible. The American Bully was meant to be, was built to be, should be a pit bull on steroids. How the breed got started was complicated, but at the same time simple. And what I mean by that is you had people who wanted bigger pit bulls. It's just that simple. You had, if you look at all the older kennels, everybody's name was Pitts. Excuse me. You had Hall of Fame Pitts, which was myself, Pratt's Pitts. I mean, you go to Eddie from Blue Line Pits. It was always pit bulls, pit bulls, pit bulls. Even if you go back to the old Dog Fancy and, what was it? Dog World and Dog Fancy magazines, everything was advertised as pit bull. The name American Bully didn't exist. So what you had is, it was basically the description of a larger pit bull type dog, you know, and as we know, you can get into the word pit bull and you can hear or see many of variations. So at that time, what you had is you had people looking for size. Now you had the variations because you had some people who obviously had Mastiff style dogs, like the Camelot dogs, you know, which had ancestry that goes back to the Bordeaux pit bull. Then you had Bordeaux pit bull mix. Then you had dogs like the Whopper blood, which was another Mastiff mix. And you had a lot of Mastiff mixed type dogs that some of these dogs have been already in existence for 20, 25 years before you even heard the American Bully term. Now, the one that is actually accredited for being the American Bully itself, the original American Bully, which was given a name by Byron, would be the exaggerated feature of the pit bull Amstaff, which was a natural selection process, and that was more the process that I took part in. The dogs would grow on their own, they would get bigger on their own. You would take the biggest of the big, you know, and you would breed those to each other. And that process was harder because what would generally happen in that process is you would only get one or two dogs that would actually be bullies. The rest would be Staffy or pit bulls. It took some time, but but with everything that went on in the early days, you know, you had these style of dogs. You had a lot of selective breeding and everybody was pushing forward. Like I say, years later, of course, we can recognize the fact that some people used Mastiffs at that time. And it wasn't the majority, I will say that. Like Gotti Line, Razor's Edge was more so towards the natural selection. Let the dogs grow, let the dogs, you know, keep on working with these genetics to pull the best up out of them. But like I said, you go into the giant XL dogs, they were Mastiffs from that time. But now to get to the real point of it is what happened is the UKC sort of helped the American Bully become an actual breed. And this is why I say this, is because the UKC had decided pretty much that they weren't going to deal with this. The AKC had been decided they weren't going to deal with this. But most people who had American Bullies at the time still had pit bull on their paperwork. So when the UKC, excuse me, when the UKC decided to go and start banning a lot of the bullies, you know what I mean, and start kicking certain people out, you had a lot of the big name breeders who were on the list for a multitude of reasons. It wasn't just because they were breeding dogs that were different from the breed standard. But what happened is that it changed everything, and it created a necessity for us to have our own breed and everything that our own registry. So with that being said, at that time you had Larry Durant out on the West Coast who was doing his thing, and he had the BKC. And that wasn't a registry, that was a club. But a lot of the huge shows was thrown at that time. You could see the momentum. He literally was bringing Hollywood to the community. Gigantic shows, people showing up. And at this point in time, we decided over at the Elite Edge, you know, spearheaded by, at that time, Dave Wilson, Mike Gallo from Devil's Den, Cruz from Bow Wow, Memo Loke, who's now the head of the IBKC, you know, Andre, who's now the head of the EBKC, and they're both founders of those things. You know, Danny Navarro from Top Shelf Bullies. I could go on and on and on. We had a crew, Oscar Gomez, who's now head of the WBA. But what happened is that it was a necessity for us to pull this thing together, because basically our dogs didn't have anywhere to go. We had paperwork through the UKC, but we really didn't have shows. We really didn't have organization. And it became pretty obvious that the breed was growing fast, but we needed organization. We needed to get away from the name Pit Bull, because much like now, back then it was probably even worse in some sectors where you just couldn't own them, you know. So the original ABKC, which coined the term, even though it didn't create the term, American Bully, was actually set up to protect the dog and us separate ourselves from the pit bull community, to fight BSL laws and to allow us to have shows. And we just put it all together as one. But if you're looking for a direct answer, that's how the American Bully came into existence, by name. If you're looking for a direct answer as far as how did the dogs get so big, you'll be looking for that answer forever. But it's all, like I say, it's multifaceted. It's the natural process of the dogs getting bigger on their own, and selective breeding to pull those traits. And you also have people who had mixed in different types of Mastiff, and that would mostly at that time come from the XL families of the Bordeaux, Camelot mixes. The big blues, or what a lot of people were calling blue noses, had Neapolitan Mastiff in them. And what you would see is those dogs could easily weigh, even back then, which was huge back then, 150, 160 pounds. Now we see some of them getting up towards 200 pounds. And, you know, it was a effort to try to bring all of this together and organize it, which has failed miserably, because people are still pretty much doing the same thing, and it's still 32, 36, 39 variations of the same dog, and it hasn't come together yet, just more so because of the way the Elite Edge is. I mean, excuse me, not the Elite Edge, but the ABKC, and the way they didn't lock things down. It was supposed to start off big and really just like close down to get more and more strict about the standards. Instead, they expanded the standards. And that's the reason why we're not here to where we need to be today. So hopefully this helps some. But anybody who's looking for the answer, and I want to double down, I want to go back over this shortly, because I know this video, I'm all over the place. But there's no real start. If you talk about the American Bully started organizational-wise by being named by Byron. The first shows were thrown by Larry Durant and the BKC. The first registry was the ABKC. The first standards, the true standards, were written by the ABKC. Now, excuse me, once again, first the name, Byron. The Larry Durant was the first like big shows. The first magazine is Atomic Dog Magazine. And the first registry is the ABKC. Now, that also includes the first actual standards for the American Bully. But the origins of the dog will forever be linked to so many different things, because, like I say, you have the natural selection process, which we were pretty much doing with the Elite Edge. You had the Mastiffs that were the XL breeds. You had people who at a certain point in time start mixing in certain types of bulldogs throughout the years. But at the start, the bulldog thing wasn't prevalent at all. That's why most of the early dogs look exactly like pit bulls on steroids. That came later. But you will always be in the fog on how the early dogs were put together, because you had literally hundreds of breeders doing their thing. But hopefully this helps you out some. That's how the organization part started. Now, what people were doing in their yards, what they added in, that's a whole another conversation that we'll probably need 3 or 4 hours on. But until next time, y'all, God bless. Much love. Peace.